This is the Real Estate Investing 365 podcast, your go-to source for real estate investing strategies so you can start living the life you want and get where you want to go. With your host, Justin Hanna.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Another episode of Real Estate Investing 365. Today I got with me Matt Faircloth. You guys have probably heard him on several other podcasts. He's all over the place, better at this podcasting thing than myself. He is the owner and founder of the DeRosa Group in New Jersey, and they have just about 750 units now. They invest in all sorts of things, apartments, commercial, office space, you name it, they've done it. So Matt, what's up, man? Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
What's going on, Justin? Thank you so much for having me here.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're figuring it out. Today is in the midst. Well, maybe it's the midst, maybe it's the very beginning. Who knows, of this coronavirus thing. So,
Looney Tunes, man. It is Looney Tunes going on out there. It's an interesting world. And you know, there's so many unknowns. I wish I could pick the brain of someone that's listening to this episode a year from now.
Right. Yeah.
They could just tell me what to expect, because there's so much unanswered questions. And because we have unanswered questions, we have speculation. And because we have speculation, we have people focusing on worst case scenario. And because of that, we have a ton of fear. You know, people are worried about running out of food. People are worried about, things we never think about. You know, like, hey, what if we run out of food? Or what if, like, you know, none of my tenants pay their rent next month? Or what if, like, I run out of money or whatever, you know? There's people like holed up in their basement with toilet paper, shotguns, and bars of gold, you know, and all that. So it's a crazy world right now. And I think a lot of it is lack of data that we don't have. And I think once we get more data, people will start feeling a lot better. We'll be able to make better calculated decisions, but we just don't have information right now.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. It's so crazy. I hear people talking about even the power grid going down. I'm like, wait a second. How is this going to affect the power grid going down?
Explain, diagram that for me, because most power plants are on autopilot these days, you know?
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot, again, power grid could go down. The financial system could collapse, could, right? But until it does, let's deal with it when it does. And I don't want to spend too much time prepping for the worst case scenario, aside from like doing a few things that I can do today. But once I've prepped for the worst case scenario, let's not focus on it for too much longer. Let me focus on getting to solutions. So I've spent most of the last week or two on just creating solutions and mitigating and finding and just finding a way through the next couple of months. Yeah. You know, that's all I think that's all that's we can do. It's in front of us to do, which is to work on getting through the next couple of months. I think that's that.
So what are some of those things you've been kind of preparing for, like for the next couple of months?
Obviously, you know, as a landlord with a reasonable amount of unit counts, we've been thinking about how can we support our tenants to make their April obligations, right? Mm-hmm. How can we make sure that they're able to make their April, May, and June obligations? Maybe not pay their rent for the rest of their lives, and all that. And we're not trying to be hard-nosed landlords about it. I've seen landlords out there popping emails out and letters to their tenants, you know, browbeating them and reminding them that their April rent's due no matter what. That's not the angle we're taking. We're doing more the communications model with tenants. Some of our property managers have been approved to offer discounts for early payment. And so just big communication with tenants, making sure tenants are safe and secure, and making sure our staff is safe and secure. So changing up protocol with regards to how units get accessed, and things like that. So those are a few things that we're doing. Let me see what else. Oh, we're negotiating with lenders. We're going to every lender we have and saying, hey, we may have a problem with cash flow. And so we're asking them whether or not we need it. We're asking them for a debt reprieve, meaning like, I don't want to have to pay my monthly payments on my debt for the next 3 months. Some are being very open to it. Some are not. And that's okay that they're not. Or at least they're not saying, no, I don't want to talk to you. They're saying, let's see. And I'm okay with let's see.
Yeah.
And we also have an interest reserve on some of our loans. So they're open to discussion, and it's been an interesting journey in mitigating this whole thing and that, but I just think it's about being in action. And we're also the last thing is we're closely monitoring a lot of the programs that are coming out. As you probably know, today's March 26th, and the federal government is about to sign a $2 trillion incentive package. It's 880 pages, and I'm going to read it.
Jeez. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm going to skim it.
Yeah. Skim it. Well, they add all kinds of
there's
things.
things that don't pertain to me. There's things
Oh.
that don't pertain to me. There's the airline stuff. Great. I'm not concerned with that right now. I want to read what's going on with the SBA, what's going on with direct dollars coming to people, what's going on with landlord tenant support, because all that's in there. I'm going to read those sections, but go ahead.
Yeah, it's such in a beginning stages of this whole thing. It's just it's at least I think one benefit of it is the whole world knows what's going on, right? So when you do talk to your lenders and everything, I mean, they know what's going on just as much as everybody does. So it seems like people have been more receptive to it. They're on single family side and maybe even small apartment, multifamily side, they're like bypassing or foregoing appraisals right now and just like going through the loans and all that stuff. I was like, that's crazy. They're not doing appraisals. They're not having home inspections. They're just bypassing the whole process. And out here in California, I'm sure it's like that everywhere. They've stopped stopped all house showings, stopped any new escrows from being opened, all that stuff. So yeah, who knows what's going to happen, but
we really don't. And because of that, because we don't know what's going to happen, all we can do is take action on what we know, or data that we believe that we have. What I believe is that some of my tenants are going to have a problem paying their April rent. And so I'm taking action based on that, just based on April rent or based on May rent. That's what's in front of us. We're also thinking down the road about what we want to do as a company as we start to come out of this, because I'm not a doomsday guy that thinks that we're going to be in this thing for 18 months or anything like that. There's no data out there that says that this thing, I mean, like you said, the unforeseen can happen, and that's just where you respond to that when it does, like the power grid going down or whatever, right? But let's not even worry about that. Let's pretend that doesn't happen for 10 seconds, right? Let's say we come at Corona crazy and we end up in a recession. I'm preparing for that. Now, I'm not trying to shark and steal properties from people. I hope every landlord friend of mine is able to retain the assets that they have. But I do believe that people were thinking about selling 6 months ago are going to be way more realistic on their pricing. I don't believe that there's going to be steals to be had, but I think there'll be deals to be had, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't definitely agree. And I'm like you, I don't really want like a huge downturn and people to start losing their properties. I would like though properties to kind of get back to like a normal or maybe like an acceptable price point. Like I'll pay you what's fair for the property so I can make a return. And then in turn, you get a decent price. But recently, I'm sure like you've seen, it's just like some things in most markets are just going outrageously crazy, in the Boise market where I invest, there's fourplexes. I just saw a fourplex yesterday up there that was on the MLS for $700,000 that sold brand new 4 years ago for like 300. And people were buying them. I'm like, that's crazy. You know what I mean? The rents are $800 a unit on $700,000.
That makes sense. Maybe that corrects a little bit, and maybe the people that bought it are going to be okay. They own it for a little while, but maybe the next person looking to sell may have to be a little more realistic with what they ask for it, and that's okay. And so we're planning on a more aggressive buying campaign as we get out. And we're going to probably raise what's called a blind, like a large pool of capital from our investors to put to work in a few different facets of business, and not just buying multifamily, but probably in everything from short-term private loans to distressed mortgage notes, because God forbid there are people that are going to end up walking away from or whatever on their small residential properties, and that's going to open up the door for distressed mortgage notes, which we want to find operators that we can invest with, not open up an arm of our company to do that. We want to be the money for organizations like that, and we want to be the money for operators that we trust that already know how to run apartment buildings. We want to go in and partner with them and provide them with good solid capital to close their deals. So because I believe that people that are above all of this, people lost a third of their anybody that was invested in Wall Street primarily with their money lost about a third of their net worth in the last couple of weeks. And that's not something to shake a stick at. That's not something to be proud about. That's not something to gloat over or to say, I told you so. That's something to say, hey, here's how I can help you, in that. So I would, I'm leery of people that post some garbage on Facebook about like, hey, are you tired of Wall Street? Because I can, or I can't wait for. I've seen posts like, I can't wait for people to all these foreclosures that are going to happen to come about so I can go buy properties, and I'm licking my chops for this crash and everything like that. That's not the angle I'm trying to take, man. I want to help the landlords that I know and help as many people get through this as I can. And then as opportunities show up, I want to take advantage of opportunities, but not be a shark or root for other people to fail.
Yeah, no, definitely. So what are some things that you think you're gonna have to change with raising money? Is there gonna be anything that's like different than before? Because recently in the last 6-7 years, right? I mean, I'm sure as raising money has been easier than it's ever been. It seems that way, but I'm sure
It's
there's
like picking apples off a tree, it's been great. But I think that a lot of capital that is in our businesses lost a lot of their reserves, perhaps, or at least, even if they didn't, even if somebody had straight cash and was just waiting to see what was going to happen, or just was looking for an opportunity to get themselves into with their straight cash. The thing is that we're in a more of an uncertain time right now. So, I mean, equity is not going to just jump into whatever deal you put out there. Equity is going to look for opportunities. It's going to wait. It's going to want to wait and see. People are probably going to want to sit on a few more cash reserves for themselves. And so we're going to be offering up things that are way less speculative. And a lot of stuff out there that people are offering 18, 19, 20% IRR returns on money. A lot of times people have to pay more. People have they have to receive better compensation for perceived risk. And so people were open to, yeah, you know what, I'll take some perceived risk on for making 18, 19, 20%. I think we're going to see investors say, no, man, I don't want any of that perceived risk. I don't want to bet on the upside on your apartment building. Just pay me a flat rate of return. And that. So we're going to be gravitating more towards less upside and more just cash flow based investments. And if I'm buying an apartment complex, you probably won't see me buy stuff that's at a 5 cap that I'm hoping I can do a big value add play on. I'm hoping I can buy something that's maybe a little higher cap rate that's just going to cash flow from the day that I get into it, and I can organically value add it over time, versus like getting in and flipping the whole place upside down and jacking up all the tenants' rents by $250. I think that's enormously more risky in today's marketplace. And I think that you're going to see a lot less of that. I think you're going to see more just cash flow based investing moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. And which is good. I think that's good for especially a lot of, you're obviously well established, and in just a second we'll dive into kind of, if anybody doesn't know who you are, your background and stuff, but some of the newer syndicators that are out there, it seems like some of the deals they're sending me that I was just looking at, well, they're just banking on this amazing economy, keep going, you know what I mean? To where they're having like slim margins and like this huge potential for all this like extreme value add and all this stuff. And like,
they're struggling to pay. I looked at a deal a guy put out in Texas, and he was like, it looked to me like the deal was going to struggle to pay a 7% pref, which is, it's modest enough, right? There's going to struggle to pay a 7% pref. And then it was like, we're going to cross our fingers and then refinance it 3 years from now. And then your return goes to the roof, because somehow or another, we're going to be able to get beyond, like, even though we're struggling to make a 7 pref through the beginning stages of the deal, somehow or another, we're going to refinance it and pull out $5 million and give that back to you and Mr. Investor, so we can make you crazy returns and move forward. You won't have any money left in the deal, but we'll keep cash flowing. And that. So it's like, let's, wish us luck, guys. I'd rather just present a deal and say, hey, listen, I'm going to pay you 7%, 7, 8, 9%. That's what it is. And maybe I don't refi. Maybe I just keep things going and you just keep making 7, 8, 9%. And there's not just this hope of this big shot in the arm, kicking your wallet at the end when I refinance it. And that's all pie in the sky. That's a lot of what you see on CrowdStreet and stuff like that. The people that are putting money out on crowdfunding sites, there's a lot of flash in the pan because it's like 23% IRR.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, let's look at that deal a little more. Let's find out how much of that 23% is coming at the refi and coming on the back end versus how much it's coming on a monthly basis.
Yeah, no, all that makes sense. Well, we have lots of good information here. So for people, like I said, that haven't heard of you, which I'm sure it's not very many, but maybe there's one or two out there. Do you want to, let's dive into kind of your background, how you got started in real estate, and then we'll, you told the story so many times, so I apologize for that, but at
No,
least
man.
gives
I love
people,
I love telling stories.
yeah, and it gives them a, idea that, hey, man, I'm gonna invest with this guy, maybe, huh?
They
That's the
can if
ticket.
they want. They can invest, they can invest wherever they want. I just hope they get inspiration.
Yeah.
So let's see. I'll take it all the way back to the beginning. 2003
Mhm.
was when I met my wife, my girlfriend at the time, now wife, and she got me to read a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I loved it. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. And at the time, I was a traveling sales rep for a company called Ingersoll Rand. And I sold their air compressor machinery all across, New Jersey and that where I lived. I lived in PA, but I was selling in New Jersey and PA. And fast forward to I loved the book, started playing the cash flow board game, and the landlord at the apartment I lived in came to us and says, hey, listen, I'm going to be selling this the house you guys are renting from me, so you guys need to get out because I'm selling it. And so we tried to buy that house, got outbid, and the realtor that sold the house said, well, let me show you another house. So he showed me another property, 150K, and this is 2002, 2003, 2004 prices, right? 150K. I bought it on an FHA 3% down mortgage, so I laid down 4,500 bucks to buy the property. Cost me $940 a month, which is what the monthly payment was. And I had my two buddies that were living with me at the other house move in with me. Each of them were paid me $500 a month to live there. So I had a pretty good job, making almost six figures at 26 years old. And I was living in a house for free, and I was making $60 a month and living there for free, and my cost of living was zero, and I still had a pretty good job. Right.
Sweet.
So
Yeah.
in 2 years, I was able to pay off all my credit cards, pay off all my student loans, get myself completely out of bad debt. And, I fell in love with real estate at that point. I saw the power of doing work once and building financial freedom beyond it for doing work one time. My girlfriend and I, now wife, started buying rentals in Philadelphia. I do not recommend that your listener base go out and buy properties with their girlfriend, but they can't. But that's what we did. It worked
Yeah.
out. And also, I went and borrowed 30 grand from her father to buy that next property, to buy our next round of properties. I borrowed 30 grand from my girlfriend's father from Salvatore. It's his name, 100% Italian
Yeah.
guy from Brooklyn. And went to Salvatore and borrowed 30 grand. And we did it. He agreed to it, and we paid him off. We paid him back, and it was a good deal. And then Liz and I got married, and we agreed that we should live way below our means, which is my biggest advice to everybody, especially in today's Corona crazy time, that if you can live below your means, do it, because it will create a lot of financial freedom in the future, and it'll enable you to make more creative decisions now on what you do with your time as you get going. And that's why I highly recommend living below your means. So we bought half the house that we could afford, which enabled it when I quit, we could live off of her income only. So my wife was our breadwinner for years while I built the business. Now this was 2005. We got married, so we had 3 good years of run up. Then the financial crisis happened, because we were only planning on me being the breadwinner for a couple of years.
Yeah.
She ended up being the breadwinner for 8 years,
Wow.
until 2013.
Yeah. Well,
And that so Go
and
ahead.
talking about living below your means, that's totally, I mean, when you go and buy, like, let's say you're going to buy a house for you to live in, a primary residence, all lenders, they want the biggest mortgage that you could get, right? I mean, that's how they get paid. And so
Yeah, man.
they give you this massive, like, oh, you're pre-approved for whatever, 500,000 or 600,000 or 300,000, whatever it is. And I just remember specifically, just a tangent story real quick. In the line work industry that I'm in, people
Yep.
can make a lot of money because they can work 7 days a week and chase the storms around and all this stuff.
Yeah,
And
man.
I remember this one guy, he had been working 7 days a week for like 7 months. Like, we were working 12-hour days and just like 7 months straight. And I asked him, I said, why are you working so much? He's like, well, I have to work this much in order to pay all my bills. Because what happens is he's young and he's working so much, and he bought this house. It was like 600 grand, and he has like 3 brand new diesel trucks, and his wife's got all this, new Suburban, all this stuff. And he's like, he had to work all that time to keep paying his bills. I'm like, I remember that vividly. This was like
How
10
long ago
years
was
ago.
this?
This is like 10 years ago.
Where's he at now?
I haven't talked to him in years, but I think he's still working his butt off. You know, that's
I'll
all he's
bet.
doing because he's
I'll
gotten
bet,
that
man.
routine and keeps
It's, you
doing it.
become the hamster in the wheel, man, and you become a slave to the debt. And there's a great book called Life in Air, by the way, which is another tangent,
Yeah.
about it's slightly a Dave Ramsey kind of thing. So I don't subscribe to a lot of it because it's not anti-investing, but it's really financial freedom through paying off your debts. I believe in paying off your personal debt to the point
Right.
where your expense load is as low as you can get it because your house is paid off, because you bought your cars free and clear, everything like that. So you're not running around trying to maintain. I mean, I had a friend back in the day, his expense load was 30 grand a month. He needed to make 30 grand a month just to keep his trains running on time. Now, he had kids in private school, had a crazy expensive house, had a nice car. His daughter was into horse racing,
Oh
right? So
yeah,
right
that's
there, I mean, I
expensive.
happen to know the horse business is crazy expensive.
Right.
And that, so he was just, just laden up to the hilt. And it's like, well, what if you get laid off, brother? I
Yeah.
mean, what if something happens like what's going on today? The other side, the other option is to live below your means. And I'm not saying live on ramen noodles and rent a house in a dicey neighborhood just so you can get by.
Yeah.
I'm saying that maybe there's some delayed gratification, and that maybe you don't need to spend every nickel that comes into your bank account when you get paid from your job. Maybe you can squirrel away some of it, and build up that egg, and also pay down debts to the point where when you get to be like my wife and I, and you want to make a decision about quitting your job so you can go and build real financial freedom, you're able to do it. Where like if your buddy that's got all that going on decided he wanted to quit his job so he could start a real estate business, forget it.
Never.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Not gonna happen. Okay,
Mm-mm.
cool. Yeah, no, that's definitely good lessons. And don't skip the coffee. Maybe just get black coffee instead of that latte, but still have little things that you enjoy. You know what I mean? But
You could
um,
do that. I mean, like
over.
skipping the coffee's not that, like that. That's not going to get you to financial freedom. People are talking about like,
Yeah.
oh, well, I'm going to just do this or do that or whatever. But getting you to I mean, and I see people posting like how much. I mean, things like quitting smoking. Like if you're a cigarette smoker, that is, like that is a crazy cost. It's bad for your health anyway,
Yeah.
and everything like that. So you should give that up for a lot of reasons. And when I used to be a smoker too, and I realized it was costing me $2,000 a year to smoke cigarettes.
Yeah.
And so I quit. And that was when the pack of cigarettes cost $4.
I was gonna
You
say
know?
now I don't
Yeah.
even know. I'm not a smoker, but they're outrageous. I do know that. So.
Do the math on that. It's $10 a pack, right? I mean,
Oh
do the math
gosh.
on if you're smoking a pack a day like I was, what a pack a day costs you on an annual basis. And this is for the privilege of shortening your life,
Hmm.
that you're paying $10 a day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
770 bucks a week. Yeah. That's
yeah, yeah,
crazy.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
300 a month, I mean, 4,000 a year. It's crazy. So
yeah.
anyway,
Okay. So yeah,
yeah,
so back to the recession. So she ended up being kind of like carrying the family or just
through
you two
that.
for like 8 years where it wasn't really supposed to be that way. So
Supposed to be
kind of
3.
walk us through the recession, the downturn. Did you guys continue buying property, or how'd that kind of look during that time?
We did, and she actually quit her job during the recession because we had actually, again, by living below your means, you end up like making more than what you need, and so we were able to squirrel away like a sizable about a year's worth of expenses. We were able
Mhm.
to squirrel up, right? Which at our level was $50,000, right? We were able to set that aside and have that sitting there, saying, okay, we can live for a year off of that, based on how we were living at that time.
Right.
And so we lived off of that egg for a year when she quit her job, and it was awful. We almost got divorced,
Yeah.
and that we before kids, we were like right on top of each other. It was, I mean, we each of us was trying to be the other person's boss and stuff like that. It was hell, and that's because we didn't have good protocol in working with our spouse. And Liz and I are big advocates of. It's funny enough, we're now big advocates of working with your married partner, right? If you use it to leverage strengths instead of using it to be like to kind of create to put more stress in your relationship versus like using it to leverage the strengths that each of you have as a married couple, right?
Yeah.
So we chose to do the first one, which was put more stress on ourselves. It was also a stressful time with the downturn, and that. So she ended up going back to work in 2010. Then we started climbing our way out, doing a few more deals, stabilizing the portfolio we had. We got into raising capital and did it on some super small stuff. And then built it up. So by the time 2013 came around, when we had our first kid, we had our son, Zachary. We had built up a sizable portfolio. We had a few apartment buildings. We'd worked with some equity, and coming into deals, we were able to recycle some of the cash that we had made and put it back into properties, so we were able to supplement her income with the business at that point.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So
that was our success story. That 3-year period, like we ran the upturn, we ran through the upcycle and refinanced our way through the upcycle in 2006, 7, and 8. Then the crash happened. Then we tried to make it work on our own, with just the two of us working together. It didn't work out. She went back to work. And then 2010 through 13 was our success story.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, one of the things you mentioned there is that you guys saved up enough money for her, like a year's worth of expenses. And one thing that, even I struggle with, because, I'd been planning on leaving my job this year, luckily through our rental property and then saving and other investments we made. But one mental challenge that I end up coming across is the fact that, okay, I've saved up enough money for, whether it's a year or several years worth of expenses, if I didn't work at all. Well, it's hard to take that leap, because then you get kind of that small mindset of, okay, I have this big nest egg. I don't want that number to go down. You like seeing this number, you know what I mean? So can you talk about that maybe? About the mindset?
Like on the mindset of having like that 50 grand sitting there and we're slowly burning through it.
You don't want to start burning through it, and then you get scared. It's like the what's somebody say, like
that was stress. The biggest stress we had would be like things like, hey, honey, this is no kids, why don't we go out to dinner tonight?
Yeah.
And you'd have like that. It was hard to maintain a prosperity mindset when you're burning through your egg like that. I do too. I
tell my wife all the time, like, the thing I want to get to is like, right now we don't have to worry about any bills, just because I have a good job and all that stuff, but I still do. And I still hate my mindset of going out to dinner and thinking, oh man, this dinner is going to be like $200. You know what I mean? That's never going to make it. Huh?
Let me give you an exercise.
Yeah.
Go to a restaurant.
Yeah.
And either like you got to either make your wife do are you the one that deals with this, or does your wife have this? Is this a cross she's bearing also, or is it mostly you?
It's mostly me.
Okay. Have your wife go to a nice restaurant, right? And have her take some masking tape. Okay. Yeah. And she's going to take the menu and she's going to masking tape all the prices.
Oh.
Okay. And you don't get to look at how much anything costs, and she's got to pay the bill. And you just because there's masking tape on the prices doesn't mean that you get to, like, you're probably still going to have the possibility to think about it, but just be present in the moment. I am out to dinner with the woman I love, and I'm going to order the thing that I love on this menu, and I'm not even thinking about the price. And if you want surf and turf, then get it. You don't order surf and turf just because it's the most expensive thing on the menu. That's kind of just being a douche. Don't do that. Like people that order expensive things just because it's expensive make no sense to me. People that eat caviar because it's expensive. Caviar is disgusting. I've had it. It's awful. Don't covet that just because. You shouldn't have things just because they're expensive. Buy things because they're nice, and the price doesn't matter, because it's what I want. Anyway, so do that and just be present in the moment. Enjoy your time with your wife, and try that on, because you've got enough money that a $200 dinner is not going to kill you, but try the exercise of just not thinking about money for a small period of time, and make your wife duct tape the prices so you can hold yourself accountable to not worry about how much that cup of seafood gumbo that really sounds good to you. Like, oh geez, that's $8 for a cup of seafood gumbo. Do I really need that?
I know.
You should have that question, right?
It's crazy. No,
my wife and I did that. And here's another exercise. This is big prosperity exercise for you. Do this at a different time. But we've gone and we've especially in today's world. I mean, this is after Corona crazy, when you actually can go out to dinner again.
Right.
Leave a tip that's the same size as the check. So if they give you an $80 check, give them $80 as the tip, right? So double the check. And you could write. We've written pay it forward, Merry Christmas, or we've written nice notes in there for them, and everything like that. But my wife and I do that every here and again. We'll just double the check as a prosperity check for ourselves, because we believe that, that being open and understanding that money's just, it's like putting your hand in a river. Okay. Picture yourself standing by the side of a stream. If you put yourself in that stream, that stream represents currency. It's what they call it, currency. It's flowing, right?
Mm.
And it's supposed to flow across your hand. If you just lay your hand open like this in the water, you'll get a ton of water across your hand. You get to use it and feel it and touch it while it's there. But if you try and bring as much of that water out of there as you can and grab it and keep it for yourself, then you're only going to get but so much. Your
Right.
better way to experience as much of that currency as you can is by being open and realizing that it just flows through you. It's not yours to squirrel away. It's just flowing through you at the time. And so you're letting the money flow through you as opposed to flow to you and being yours to where you have to coop it up and squirrel it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. That's a good analogy. And I do find myself, I'm way more willing and happy when I spend money for nice, like for other people,
Mhm.
like just saying that, like leaving large tips. Like sometimes I
Ooh.
really like doing that, but when it's for myself, I'm like, I don't want to do that.
You
It's
gotta
too
buy
much money.
yourself a nice watch, man. Buy yourself
Yeah.
like I was gonna buy myself, Samsung makes like a smartwatch thing.
Yeah.
It was like $300. I wanted it. And I was like, ooh, but I was same exercise as you,
Yeah.
and I do fairly well, but I still have these conversations with myself sometimes, like, I don't know, do I really need that?
Yeah.
And then I ended up like researching it, and I actually realized that it actually had some bad reviews, but I was gonna buy it for myself. I ended up buying myself. I grew again. I'm maybe a little bit older than you are, but I grew up when being a punk rocker was really cool.
Uh,
And so all the kids my age were wearing Doc Martens.
oh yeah.
You remember those shoes,
I just know
right?
what they are. I
Yeah, I
don't
know, right?
remember what they
Because
look like.
they're before your generation, right? But I remember like the bands all had them, and
Hmm.
I was into the punk rock scene and stuff like that. Believe it or not, I was cool one day.
Yeah.
And so I had a pair of Doc Martens when I was a kid, and they were my favorite shoes. And so instead of buying myself the watch because it ended up having bad reviews and like me, I don't want that. I bought myself like a $200 pair of combat boots that I still
Okay.
love, and they're the best. They're
Yeah.
they like they're big cushy soles. They're so comfortable. It's like wearing a pair of pillows on your feet. It's phenomenal. But I don't think if I had a different prosperity mindset would I have done that as a gift for myself. I'm okay spending $200-300 on my wife,
Yeah.
or on buying her crazy Christmas presents and stuff like that. But I struggle with the same thing on buying things for myself, but I force myself. Like I'm gonna buy myself a really awesome gift, a birthday present, like a pair of combat boots that there's no way I would buy for myself normally. So I've been dealing with just prosperity, I just giving myself nice gifts, and it really opens up conduits of more money,
Yeah.
by taking care of me.
Yeah, and changing our mindset around little things like that, who knows? Like, I mean, it definitely will help us in other aspects of our, real estate investing career. Um, so
Yeah,
back to
lots of
this.
exercises there. Let me know when you do
So
that dinner. I want to hear what you order.
I will, I will do that. My wife will be happy about that too.
Yeah. Go for it.
um,
No, she'll our spouses love supporting us, and I bet she'll be there with bells on with the duct tape.
oh
She'll
yeah,
be there with the masking tape to masking tape the prices and not let you like look at the prices and probably encourage you to order something really awesome on the menu and everything like that too.
yeah. Next in November when we all get to go back out to
Right? Yeah,
restaurants.
yeah. When restaurants open back up,
Yeah.
right?
So in 2013, you guys kind of like it really kind of exploded, and you guys started bringing in investors in your real estate in your real estate business. Is that when it
First
kind of
investor
happened
came in 2011.
in 2011? Okay,
Mhm.
well let's talk about that a little bit. So why did you decide to go that route, and like how did that whole process take place? Because a lot of people, they want to get to that stage, but man, it's like hard. It's like mentally hard to like start raising money or
They
stressing
got to
out or
read my
something like that.
book. I mean, I'm not too much self-promoting, but they got to read Raising Private Capital, which I wrote for Bigger Pockets, which teaches you how to get through that mindset stuff. It teaches you Raising Private Capital teaches you, if I may plug just for 10
Yeah,
seconds,
yeah, go
it
do it.
teaches you how to find the money in your network. It teaches you where the money's hiding,
Hmm.
because there is money around all of us. And if you are adamant that you don't know anyone with money that would invest with you, and if you truly believe that you're right, then you got the wrong friends.
Right.
If you're truly hanging out with people that have no extra money, then you become the average of the 5 people that you hang out with. So why would you hang out with a bunch of people that have no money, right?
Hmm.
And maybe it's not family members, but that's great. Get some new friends and tell them about how awesome real estate investing is and how you're doing real estate stuff and everything like that. Um, when we first got into raising money from other people, we kind of tripped into it. Our first investor was someone that Liz went to college with. and she was having coffee with him and, just getting reconnected. They had gotten reconnected on LinkedIn. He's a financial planner. She was working in a sales position. So they were just trying to, generate leads for each other kind of thing. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Like a business networking coffee. And he was like, well, how's your husband? What's he up to? And she said, oh, my husband's invested in real estate. He's got some rental properties going, this and that. And this guy from college said what the magic words, which you love to hear people say, which was, geez, I wish I could invest in real estate too, but I just don't have the time.
You're like,
Right.
oh,
And
matter
it's
of
like,
fact.
ooh, I got time. I'll make time,
Yeah.
what the hell, and so he became our first equity investor. And she was like, you really should talk to my husband. And so he and I went up and had another cup of coffee and talked about what we were up to. And we had bought a few deals and had a few deals going, since the downturn, and we're starting to see some opportunities and stuff like that. This was like a year after the real, the bottom hit.
Mm-hmm.
Like we fell off the cliff in 2008. Different crisis than we're facing today, because it took a while for banks to start lending, and it took a while for foreclosures to work their way through the market. And so you couldn't just buy. It's not like you could just buy property right after the crash. You had to allow these properties to work their way through the cycle and for things to start, for opportunities to make their way to our plate. So we're seeing a lot of foreclosures show up. We bought a few and we were starting to see more. And so this guy was like, I'd love to invest with you. So he put up $50K and we went out and bought 2 townhomes, little urban townhouses that, maybe 1,000 square foot a piece. We, at the same time, had somebody who I was helping do some property management roles for. And he had built his portfolio through borrowing from an IRA account from a friend of his. And he came in and taught me how he was doing it. He says, listen, this is how IRAs work. This is what they are. It's a retirement account that's not in Wall Street. It's invested somewhere else. And he educated me on how retirement accounts work. And he said, I want you, Matt, to take my retirement account and put it to work in your business. And so I said, great, let's do this. So he put up $50K. My private equity, my investor friend of Liz put up $50K. So now I had 100. The $50K from the IRA was a loan, was debt, right? So we borrowed $50K from him. And we bought the 2 townhouses. We took the $50K from the equity guy and we renovated those townhouses for a total cost of $100,000. We refinanced them at a value of 150. Once we were done the reno, we were able to refinance it because I was able to lease both townhouses. Each one had a total of $50,000 invested. I was able to lease each one of them for $950 a piece. Right?
And you into them for 150. Or
yeah, I had them both rented. I had them both rented for $950.
Yeah.
They then valued at $750 a piece, or 150 grand. So I was able to refinance. I took out the private loan. Mm-hmm. I got the equity guy's capital back, and he and I took the equity and did the BRRRR strategy. Took it and reinvested it down there, and rolled that potato down the road, and rolled it over and over. And then the private loan guy got his capital back, and he unfortunately his father passed, and his father left him hundreds of thousands of dollars in IRA money. And so he took all that and gave it to us. So that was our initial seed deal. And so because we treated those investors right in the first deal, the private equity guy who ended up he's a New York stockbroker, still is. He told a bunch of his friends about us. So we started building larger and larger funds, working with people using the same strategy. Using a private note from an IRA coming in, using some equity on top, building it over and refinancing it. We did larger and larger deals. Fast forward to 2013, when Liz was able to quit her job, we bought an 18-unit apartment building in Philadelphia. Bought an 18-unit building in Philly, and that plus and we had bought a few other assets going up to that. Bought a bunch more single-family homes. Had bought some scattered site small multi. Bought a 10-unit apartment building, and bought all that up and probably a portfolio was up around 60, 70 doors in 2013, and that was enough income for Liz to quit.
Okay, that's a great. So one thing what you're saying here is how it kind of gets started so slow. And I think this is what people often forget, right? Is that there's so many podcasts and so many people that we listen to that these days that, you know how it is, like all the podcasts have all these people that are doing such big things. And so the small guy that's just getting started, they hear all these people like, oh, they're raising millions of dollars for this and millions of dollars for that, or they're at, 500 units, 1,000 units. But people kind of forget that it just starts with that one thing, and it's just a snowball, just like the money snowball with renting property, bringing in your rental income. The same thing probably goes for raising money. You started with one guy, and then he got another guy and told somebody else. And then as you grow your business over a couple of years, it'll continue to
People
accelerate.
don't realize how things snowball quickly, right? Like if
Yeah.
you run the right equation and run the right play,
Mm-hmm.
on a small deal, it can quickly scale up. And too many people are running. I mean, again, I'm talking about, this is pre-corona crazy, that people were running around, going to one weekend seminar and then like, I want to buy 100-unit apartment complex. And these, these shameful gurus that are out there telling people like, take my one weekend course and I'll show you how to buy a 100-unit apartment building. Right. They should tell them like all the 50 things that could go wrong on that 100-unit apartment building too. And you're really, people are running around half cocked, trying to do big deals, right? If that's still the case, if you're listening to this and you think that you want to go out and buy a 100-unit apartment building first deal, you get two options. You either join a team that already has a bunch of apartment buildings and become a team member of theirs and negotiate some equity for yourself for adding value to their company. And there's a ton of people out there looking for more help, especially with corona crazy going on. Or you start small, and it's okay. Have the courage to start small and scale up and build and build and build. I mean, if you double your portfolio every time you do a deal, that grows up really, really fast. And it's okay to start small. Do like a 2-unit portfolio, a 2-unit deal like I did.
Yeah.
And then you can upgrade to a 4, then an 8, then a 16, then a 32. I mean, you see, it grows fast.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of fun to grow your own thing. You put so much stress on yourself to like
so
focus out there on saying, I have to get this size deal, this whatever. I have to get a 50-unit deal for my first deal. That's like a lot of pressure and a lot of stress. And then you probably aren't going to get it. Most people aren't going to get it for their first deal. But in that same time, you could have bought 20 units of just like 2, 4, a 6-unit, whatever. And it's fun. You learn it. It's like exciting. You're making progress. You're staying motivated.
I know a lot of people that have small portfolios that do really, really well. Not small portfolios. I'm talking about small scattered site, let's say.
Yeah.
I know people that have scattered site. Like I got a buddy that owns like 200 units of scattered site. He does better than a lot of apartment building owners that I know. Right. And there's something to that. It's not sexy to be like, oh, I own an apartment complex, and you can brag about that at the cocktail party. But the guy that owns 200 units scattered site, he's built a good team around himself, and he's making really good money, and he pretty much puts in 20 hours a week now. In that, I mean, you got to 20 units scattered, 200 units scattered site is nothing to shake a stick at, and it takes a lot to maintain all that. So that size portfolio doesn't have its own problems, but it's still something that that's worth considering, that the apartment buildings are not the only way to wealth. Exactly. A lot of people think that they are, but they're not.
Yeah. And just the last thing that I have on that is like, that totally makes sense, because, I have several friends, like one guy, Gabriel Hamill, I interviewed him a while ago. He's got 175 or 200 units, and they're all seller financed. Like he's just like built it slowly over time. Well, the main goal for most investors is cash flow. You know what I mean? Like you want to make the money to either get away from your job or to have dispensable income.
And Gabriel Hamill's never raised money from investors. He's not, he owns all that portfolio himself. That's why he's a good role model for a lot of investors. And if you haven't listened to it, you should listen to his episode on your show, and also his episode on the Bigger Pockets podcast. I mean, he's a friend of mine. When I was in GoBundance for a while, and he and I met there. And I mean, he's a great dude, and has really built a sizable portfolio on his own. So he is somebody that you guys should study. And instead of like, remember, if you buy that 100-unit apartment complex, you're going to end up walking out the door with maybe 15, 20% ownership if you're super lucky.
That's where I was going. Exactly.
Sell the rest of that ownership over to your investors. Your investors are going to do well, but you're going to get paid last, So.
Exactly. Yeah. There's not, just because you have a big unit number when you're just getting started in apartment syndication doesn't mean you're making a big cash flow at the end of the month, because you got a lot of expenses to pay out there. So, but that's kind of a good segue into you guys did end up growing, right? And you kind of through 13, 14, 15, all that stuff, you grew your portfolio into bigger apartment buildings and office space and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
Office space. The office building was kind of making lemons out of lemonade out of lemons. Because we bought the office building right. I mean, it was like right before the crash,
mhm.
in 2007. And we bought it because I ran the numbers on it. This was back in the core. So in New Jersey, we had a governor called Governor Corzine. And he was a, Democratic governor, was doing a lot of like growth of the government, putting a lot of staff in, and they were gobbling up office space at $18 a square foot all over the city of Trenton. This building was in the city of Trenton. We bought it for $50 a square foot. So my math was like, I can make a third of my rent back if I make a third of my purchase price back every year. Think about that. Like, to buy a property for 100 grand and you make 30,000 back a year in rent. That's
Yeah.
incredible, right? Now we
Yeah.
paid a lot more than 100 grand for it, but our pitch was to position the state of New Jersey, and it was right in their growth bubble, right? And they were targeting properties about that size, and so we
They
bought
were
it.
renting the property at $18 a square foot?
Yes, they were
Okay.
leasing at $18 a square foot.
Okay.
We bought it for 50,
Okay.
right, for $50 a foot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so on the math, that's a third of your purchase price back every year in rent, right?
Yeah. No, I understand.
Yeah, crazy equation.
It's awesome.
So so we ended up like, oh, this is great, let's do that. So we bought it. We needed to put a short-term tenant in while we were waiting on the state to get interested. So we put a short term, like a high school, and they leased the building from us, and the high school was in the building. Like, it was like a VOTEC high school. It was really interesting. It was really cool what they were doing. But they leased it short term while they were building a facility for themselves. So they rented it for 1 year. During that 1 year, the market crashed. Okay. And Chris Christie, that governor I was talking about, got beat in an election by a guy named Governor Corzine got beat by Chris Christie,
Right.
who we've all heard of, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Chris Christie is a hardcore, very different type of governor. And he saw what was going on in New Jersey, that New Jersey really needed to pull back on a lot of its expenses. So he canceled a lot of leases and, got the state out of a lot of contracts that it was in, and drastically contracted the size of the government in New Jersey, based on the downturn, but also based on that's what he ran. He campaigned on doing that. That's what he said he was going to do. And so he pulled everything back. And then the crash happened. And so we ended up having to completely change the business plan on the building. And we ended up carving it up and turning it into a small business center, which it is still today. And a lot of people that got laid off during the crash ended up coming to us to open up to small businesses. I had attorneys that were working for gargantuan law firms that got laid off from their company. It's like, well, I guess I'm going to go start my own law firm. And they became our tenants. So we were able to fill up pretty quickly with people that were, rebuilding after the crash, and that's really where a lot of the growth of small businesses came on after that. And we were renting office space at $300-400 an office. And we were able to offer somebody an attractive option. They used to work from home. They were working from home and having their meetings at Starbucks. And instead of that, I was able to give them a conference room and a physical office place. So that's how we got into that building. But that was really, lemonade out of a big bucket of lemons that we got dealt. So
Yeah,
we're
being
still in the
flexible
building
is
today.
key. Yeah.
You got to know how to pivot, which is so key today, about like, have a great business plan, have goals on where you want to go, and then be prepared to pivot as the market changes.
Yeah, definitely. So, we'll touch on that real quick. So how do you kind of know what to think about how to pivot? You know what I mean? Because a lot of people get in the one track mind of like, well, this is what I do. This is what I invest in. This is where we're going. And then it's hard to like switch your mindset and think of some other way to like, well, outside the box. Like, is there any like tips or what you have, or how to realize how to do that?
There's a difference between pivoting and chasing shiny nickels. Right. And
Yeah.
so the chasing shiny nickels person is the one that had done a few fix and flips and was successful with it, and then said, you know what, I'm going to go buy apartment buildings because that seems to be what everybody else is doing, or there seems to be a lot of money in that, so I'm going to go buy an apartment building. And then after Corona crazy, they're like, you know what, I think I'm going to go buy some distressed mortgage notes. I'm going to do that now. And then after we get out of Corona crazy, like, you know what, I really enjoyed the fix and flips. I'm going to do that. The pivot is the person doing fix and flips, reading the tea leaves and seeing the changes. And maybe instead of buying single family homes, building them out with gorgeous kitchens and big open floor plans, and selling them, if they start to see things getting a little nuts with Corona crazy, or maybe not with Corona crazy, but with just things start to slow down, maybe they start leasing those homes, or maybe start doing rent to own.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they start changing things up and doing and just changing their model a little bit, but keep your fundamentals there, because the most successful business operators that I've seen are able to build a certain foundation, and then they're able to do some pivoting and shifting on top of it. They don't just burn the house down they've built and then build new ones, unless it's just I mean, I've done that, and I did that when I was doing this. It was clear that this was not going to work. It was not a direction I could go in, and so I needed to stop it. That was when we were doing self-management. We built up and built up. We were running 115 units out of my office in Trenton, and I had a sizable team. Had an in-house construction company, and I saw that it wasn't sustainable, and I saw that I was not the right personality for it. That I was not the one it didn't fit me to be sitting in the middle of all that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the number one reason why I needed to burn it down. And number two, I saw that I could not scale it, and that it was not something that could go way bigger without me taking on gargantuan more risk. In that. So that's why I had to stop doing it. So I think it's okay to completely change your model if it's clear that it just should not be doing it. It's just, you can't build it and grow it any further. So you really ought to just stop and change, which is what we did.
Well, I think it's a good point to touch on. About what I'm trying to say is, what you're talking about here is exactly an example of why it's beneficial to build your portfolio from a small scale up, because for one, you're learning so much. You know the business inside and out. You know what I mean? If you're starting into something from small units and growing up into those larger units, you know it so well that you're able to like see what's coming and then know how you can pivot. Whereas if you just get into something from 0 to a 100-unit building, or 0 to a giant office building or something, well, you're in this huge process with all this money out there, and you don't really know the business well enough to see what's coming down the road and how to pivot. So that's definitely a good point. And like you mentioned, rent to own, that's what we kind of incorporated in our business recently because of this, because we think, oh, maybe lending's going to get tightened up. There's still people who want to buy houses. So now we're incorporating that in the properties we're buying in Idaho, is like the lease to own type of thing, because that's another option, right? We can do that.
But that's a pivot. That's a pivot. You're already doing a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so a pivot is like a 2 to 5 degree shift on your angle of attack. A chasing shiny nickel is, stopping, moving in that direction to go another. I've heard, Brendan Turner, who I highly respect, talks about building bridges. If you've heard his bridge analogy, if you've had him on the show yet. What he talks about, like, let's say you and I are sitting on this island right here, and over here across this river is financial independence. And so if we're like, okay, we're going to build a bridge to financial independence, and that bridge is going to look like apartment buildings. It's going to be apartment buildings. I'm going to build that bridge. And then we get about halfway across the river, and we're like, you know what? I like fix and flips. Or my buddy Johnny convinced me that apartment buildings aren't the right thing to do. Or I read one article on Bigger Pockets about how apartment buildings aren't the right thing to do. Or I think that the breeze is blowing in another direction, so I'm going to try something different. So we climb down that bridge and we go build another bridge, and we don't get very far on that. And what you got is, you and I are still sitting on this island with like 6 bridges that are all halfway built. Versus what Brandon did. Brandon built a bridge over and got to the island on the other side, and then you can start building other bridges. Once you reach financial independence, or reach a level of stability in that angle that you built, then you can start building number 2. And it's okay. You can say, yes, that's a great idea, and I look forward to the day that I can pursue that idea. But having the courage to say, no, not right now. In a little bit, I'll look at fix and flips, or I'll look at lease to own, or wholesaling, whatever it is I want to get myself into that seems good at the time. But I had the courage to say, no, I'm going to keep going on this direction and keep pivoting, maybe turning the bridge a few degrees left or a few bridges right until I get it where I want it to be.
Yep, totally. I totally agree with everything you're saying. So, okay, well, let's go back. Where exactly is your business today? Like, how does it look today? You guys have about 750 units.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like? And then we'll dive into how you guys are going to maybe pivot for this upcoming, who knows what's going to happen.
Right, who knows, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, where we are right now is we're in the middle of just, optimizing the next 3 months for our business. And I think that's where a lot of people are, a lot of landlords,
Mm-hmm.
So that's about making sure that April, May, and June rent get paid. That is making sure we've got enough cash to weather whatever storm is coming, and everything like that. So that's where we're at now. I'm not heavy acquisition right now, Justin, and I don't think that anybody should be today.
Mm-hmm.
I think acquisition time is coming, but I don't think that we should be looking to buy, on March 26, 2020, because just lending is crazy right now. I mean, banks are changing their terms. Banks are putting their pencils back in their pockets right now, so banks are really trying to figure where this thing's going to land, because a lot of banks either are going to end up taking some of their assets back, or are going to have to jump in and help some of their current owners that are their borrowers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're in a stabilization period right now, but I'm thinking about the next couple months, but I'm also thinking about what I want to roll out once we start getting our head above water.
So we're all
Not us. I mean, we're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
But once we as a country start getting our head above water. So,
Right.
go ahead.
So where are all your properties located? Are they all around the Philadelphia area, or are they kind of all over the place?
No, it's funny. I wrote an article for Bigger Pockets years ago about why I'll never invest 30 minutes outside of 30 minutes away from my home. But I've completely broken that rule now. We're in North Carolina, Kentucky, Central Pennsylvania, and New Jersey.
Okay, because this is one thing that I get asked a lot, and obviously I'm sure you get asked a lot, is like, okay, well, how do I, maybe my area is not the best area or whatever, and how do I identify an area outside of my market? How do I really break into that area and know that that's a good thing to come? Because I think especially now, if we do go into something that's going to be better buying times, people are going to have to like buckle down and pick an area and just like focus in on what they're going to do.
We got to become an expert on that area. I mean, number one, you need a good set of legs in the area that can manage the properties for you. People discount property management and think it's like, oh, I'll just find a property manager. There are great property managers and there are awful property managers.
Yeah.
There's property managers that'll bankrupt you and steal from you, or that are just like half-assed run out organizations. Or there's property managers that are phenomenally run organizations and they'll make you rich.
Right.
You got to find that PM, and most markets have both, right? So you got to figure out which PM is which as you dig into markets. And I think that the first thing you should do is find a market that you see upside growth in, a market that you know. So if it's not your backyard, find a market that you maybe used to live in, or that you're willing to get to know, and you're willing to, once we can get back on an airplane, markets you can fly to go check out. And to go and put boots on the ground on, right? So because when you get investors or lenders or whatever, they're going to work with you on those deals. You got to be able to pitch them on why Albuquerque or Idaho or wherever it is you're investing is a great place to invest. So you got to get to know that market like the back of your hand. Also, when deals come up, you got to know what the good blocks and bad blocks are. So I think it's market analysis, local relationships, and also building, a plan that's got some longevity to it that'll enable you to stay in that market for the foreseeable future, so you can build a strong business there. And it's okay if it's not in your backyard. I don't think that everybody should be investing in their backyard. Although I do think that a lot of people just think, oh, I can't invest here. There's probably ways to invest more. There's more ways to invest in your backyard than you think. And if your backyard's overpriced, then especially now, you should be buying properties that are discounted, and maybe try and fix and flip, or trying to buy here with the value being up here, that you can monetize that value somehow. I'm going off on a tangent a little bit, but I think I think it's about identifying markets and local relationships. I'll stop there.
Yeah, definitely. And some good books for that. I mean, I'm sure you've written so many blog articles on Bigger Pockets. I'm sure you've touched on this at some point, and some stuff you've written, but David Green's book, Long Distance Real Estate Investing, and also Joe Fairless's book, the apartment syndication book. I forget exactly what it's called. I got it here somewhere. Anyways, in there, it kind of really breaks down like exactly how to identify a market, and there's tons of places to find that out. But maybe this is a time while we're all stuck at home. Anybody out there thinking about going to a new market, you guys can't go to dinner anyways, sit home and like really start studying this stuff, so that's just, this is the ticket. So, okay. But so for your guys' company, what is the future plans? Where are you guys headed? Are you trying to get to a certain unit count or expand into a new, asset class? What's kind of like the future plans regardless of where the economy goes?
Well, we're pivoting a little bit, and that as we get into the future. And I mean, what this was pre-corona that we were looking at this. We want to build something that's really going to serve our investors in the future. I think that we're moving away from a market that investors are going to, I mean, the investors that I deal with aren't going to want, crazy upside, aren't going to want, 18, 19, 20% IRR returns on every deal. They're going to want stability and cash flow. So I'm looking to provide that. And so we're looking for deals to provide stability and cash flow. And we're going to be pitching to our investors, hey, listen, I can get you that now. I might not get you 18, 19, 20, but that's all pie in the sky anyway. And the guy that's saying he's going to get that wasn't thinking about coronavirus when he told you he was going to get it for you, And so we're going to be restructuring our offerings to investors that are going to be more cash flow positioned. We're definitely going to be super bullish on multifamily because I still believe that multifamily is long-term one of the best asset classes out there because people still need a place to live. Right. We're also going to be getting into other stuff like private loans and distressed mortgage notes because I think those are going to be necessary vehicles as we climb our way out of this thing. So that's what we're going to be getting into.
Okay, that's perfect. Yeah, I definitely agree with you on the multifamily long term. One thing I wanted to ask you about before we kind of move to our last two questions is, what about coaching and mentoring? What are your thoughts on that?
So should people have a mentor? We have a not so much a mentoring program. It is. I just give people direct access to me where people want to come pick my brain or people want to be a part of a private community. I believe in communities. I don't believe in gurus that this guy has all the, like this person over here has all the answers and I should just bow at their feet and every word that comes out of their mouth is lined with gold. I believe in communities and communities are where ideas can bubble up. And yeah, maybe there's somebody like myself that's got 15 years worth of experience and a couple of gray hairs that can tell you about what I saw in the past and can give some real life experiences and stuff like that. And so we're building a community for ourselves. I'm not so big of a fan of the boot camp weekends and everything like that with regards to getting yourself going. But if you can find yourself in your local market, somebody who's willing to allow you to be their mentee, and maybe you can find a value add way that you can benefit them in exchange for them benefiting you. Maybe that's possible. I see that a lot. You got to just find somebody in your local backyard that's able to do it. We're building this thing called DeRosa Insiders, where people just get an inside look at our company and are getting an inside look at what the day-to-day operations of a real estate firm looks like, so they can kind of see inside and get an idea of whether or not they want to build something like what we build or something different. And we're also giving direct access to me and my team and my wife. And I think that given as changing this market is, I think that it'd be very foolish to try and do things on your own. And so I think the communities are going to be of the biggest value as we go forward.
Yeah, definitely agree. And to play on something we talked about earlier is like the people that you're around, you know what I mean? Is like definitely what's going to bring you up or bring you down in life. And I definitely agree with that. So if you guys get out there, reach out to Matt or anybody, just try to find masterminds or people that are where you want to be, and don't necessarily pay outrageous amounts for like these one-on-one gurus or whatever, like you're talking about, but just get in communities like you're saying. That definitely believe that. So
yeah, go in bigger pockets, and bigger pockets is free for most of the community accesses there. I mean, even our community is super, super reasonably priced. I mean, it's not even, it's like literally a couple of dollars to be a part of our communities and stuff like that. And I think that is real win-win. I'm not trying to, make like just make a living off of being an educator. I'm looking to run my real estate company and help people that want to learn from us too.
Yeah, because your time's valuable, so that's why like people have to charge something for it. Exactly. Yeah. So okay, well, what is your favorite way to learn? I mean, you probably aren't learning a bunch of new stuff in real estate, but for somebody getting started, what's the best way to learn about new aspects of real estate, new asset classes? Is it books, seminars, podcasts, forums? What do you think is the number one way?
I do listen to I've gotten away from listening to podcasts with Corona crazy going on. I used to listen to a podcast a day when I was in the gym. And I can't go to the gym, and I got to work out in front of my TV or go for a run outside, which is harder. It's harder to listen to podcasts when you're working out in front of your TV, like, like doing the, YouTube videos and stuff like that are out there. And that's, I used to listen to a lot more podcasts. I got to get back into that. Most of the education that I do, Justin, is in conversation because I learn and think out of my mouth. You got to think about and that's just how I am, right? I learn by talking to people and having phone calls. The phone call I was on before this interview was a phenomenal phone call, and I learned a ton. I took a page of notes while I was talking to this fellow real estate investor. That works for me. Other people learn by reading and comprehension and thinking and stuff like that. So you got to think about how you learn and that. But whatever it is you're doing, do it now, because a lot of things are changing and there's a lot of education out there, and a lot of people have great opinions and great thoughts on how to move forward in this current marketplace. So I personally am talking to as many people as I can.
Right on. Good. Networking. It comes up time and time again in like every episode, just about 50 episodes in, and it comes up in almost every one.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. What about a favorite piece of technology or app or program that you guys use in either personal or business life that makes stuff easier?
We use a few. Okay. Slack is a good one that we use. Has anybody brought up Slack yet on your show?
Not on my show, no, but
Good.
I've definitely heard on other ones. Nope.
No, I want to be like unique here, man.
That's it,
I felt bad bringing up Rich Dad Poor Dad as the book that gave me inspiration, because I'm sure everybody says that.
Everybody
right?
says that, but it's like a life-changing book, so it's okay.
It is this transformational book. What do you want? Yeah.
Did a bunch
Thanks,
of
Robert. Yeah. Anyway, Slack I like because we were finding in my company that we were all getting buried in emails, and the email that I sent to my partner about like, hey, I need to know where the financials are for this project or whatever, was getting buried along with all the other spam that he had and emails from lenders and emails from other people or whatever. And when he would set aside the hour to two every day to farm through his email box, he would find my email and he'd be like, oh, geez, sorry for keeping you waiting on that. So what Slack does is it's somewhat similar to email in that, like, you can send requests and you can ping people and that, but it allows for topic-based conversations to be in a certain channel in that, but you can ping somebody outside of email and ask them a quick question. So what we agreed was, listen, emails for information only. If you have an urgent matter, use Slack. But if you want me to get to it when I do, send me an email.
Right.
In that. So if there's an urgent thing that you need help with, either call me or use Slack. And it just sits outside of the emails, and just Slack gets a lot more attention than email does in our company. And it's just project-based oriented conversations that you don't just get buried in email hell,
Yep. Nope.
That's why we like it.
That's great advice. I agree. Slack seems awesome. So, well, Matt, I appreciate you being here this week. You go on for 4 hours. Where can people, you mentioned your book and all your stuff on Bigger Pockets, your company, just where can people find out more about you?
Sure.
And
they can do two things.
Yeah.
Do two things. They can pull out their handy dandy cell phone and they can send a text to the number 668-66, and just send the word DeRosa, my company, DEROSA. Send the word DeRosa to 66866. And that'll give them access to DeRosa Insiders, which I mentioned before, for $1 for the first month. And then they can also reply back to that text. Once they get the welcome text, they can send their email address as a second iteration, and that'll send them this enormous basket of goodies, all kinds of stuff, a lot of PowerPoint presentations I've done, videos you can't get on my YouTube page, just as like a thank you for reaching out to us. So they can do those two things, or they can just go to derosagroup.com, 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 and they can learn everything about us from an education and investment perspective.
Cool. And what was your book again?
Raising Private Capital. You can buy that on my website too. And Raising Private Capital is available on Amazon. It's an Amazon bestseller. Thank you very much. And you can get it on Bigger Pockets too.
Cool. So, well, Matt, thanks a million. I appreciate you being here. Lots of good information, and we could have gone forever, but we all got stuff.
We'll just have to do it again.
We'll just have to do it again. Perfect.
We'll do it again. That's fun.
Well, thanks, Matt. Have a great afternoon. I appreciate it.
Justin, thank you.
All right.